Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Pollard, and I'm really excited to be talking to you all for my first ever NACIS PCD. A huge thanks to Travis and all the other volunteers for their hard work in putting together such a wonderful conference. I'm sad that I couldn't be there in person, but I do have my trusty work from home partner, Slinky, sitting here with me this morning. And today I'm going to talk about my experiences during the 2019 and 2020 30-day map challenge. Hopefully by now you've heard from Topi about what this month-long mapping challenge is and how it is a way to celebrate the joys of mapping and sharing knowledge. I'll talk about why I joined the challenge, the importance of planning your theme ideas and data wrangling early, and finding inspiration, because sometimes we all need a little bit from time to time. I'll also do a little behind the scenes on a few of my favorite maps. Maps that inspire. So a few years ago, I realized I didn't have a map that I felt worthy of talking about or one that wowed me. Over the past few years, we've really been seeing a lot of amazing maps coming from the talented NACIS community, popping up on Twitter or appearing in the pages of the most recent Atlas of Design. Also, I've been a huge fan of the maps that have been that are printed in National Geographic magazine. For decades, I've been staring at those like most of us. And I thought, you know what, it's time for me to sort of create that one map that I'd be really proud of, that showcase piece. But I was having trouble getting started, thinking of an idea, thinking of a topic, and just finding that motivation to sort of get me going. But in October of 2019, I saw Topi's tweet about this challenge. Initially, I had some hesitancy. It could be a ton of work. And there had plenty of logistics that I needed to navigate. Working full-time, teaching GIS and cartography one night a week, as well as my home life. Plus, I'd be putting my maps or graphics out there on Twitter for all to see. But I decided to take that leap of faith, very similar to Jamie Thomas here. I needed to find that this challenge is going to be that perfect motivation to get me going. So I launched into this month-long challenge with a few objectives in mind. One, to push myself outside my usual work habits, possibly create that one map that I've been searching for, and experiment with visualizing geospatial data in a different tone. Quick, lively, colorful maps that would expand my creative palette. As my 10-year-old daughter so pungently stated, Dad is making art with his maps again. And I didn't really have a whole lot to lose. Unlike Jamie here, if things went wrong with my map creation, I wasn't going to have any physical harm. So I started out and I laid out some ground rules and set some goals before getting started. One of them was I needed to limit myself to about an hour a day. And that wasn't going to happen on every single map. These would be unfinished maps or concepts that I could revisit later. So create something that maybe, I'd come back and might be that one map. Incorporate different visual design elements don't stick to the norm. Set some other goals. One that I wanted to set to figure out is actually learn how to use QGIS, some of the layout tools. Things I'd been seeing on Twitter pop up recently, and it made me curious, as well as it would help me with teaching cartography and GIS, something that I've had my students asking me about and I didn't know the answers to. Also, in regard to that, it was a perfect opportunity for me to gather some interesting data sets for future GIS and cartographic course work assignments. There could be that potential that one of these maps could lead to a submission for the GeoHipster calendar or a future Atlas of Design. And the fourth goal, obviously, work with my daughters and have fun during this challenge. Get some design and topic idea help from them, or get their opinions on colors, or some of those extra added visual elements to include on the map. Data wrangling. So definitely advice, start early. What I did was I took all of the different themes, laid them out in a spreadsheet, day one in this particular theme or idea. came up with some ideas and jotted them down here. But one of the benefits that I did was I added the days of the week. This really helped me sort of think about and plan some of the ideas, or think about some of those data sets a little bit more. Knowing that some of the ideas and data sets that I wanted to work with were ones I hadn't used before, or might be a little bit more complex. So I made sure to sort of set those aside for the days that I knew that I had some time that I could commit to that. Also, I always have a plan B. Just in case that 10-year-old or someone else is looking over your shoulder and they state, hey, your theme for day 8, which is green, and you're going to make a map of Greenland, is wrong. So I had to pivot on that day to appease my daughter. And we actually worked together to create a map of Iceland, because she had some interest in sort of looking at the topography and the layout of Greenland versus Iceland. So we stuck with that. But themes and topics. So we've been trying to come up with these 30 different topics and themes. One of the things I did was I looked towards a few things. Real world experiences, places that I had visited, or places, or topic and ideas that came out from the dinner table, or even debates that we've had on, climate change or current events that are happening out in the real world. Sometimes a theme or a map idea came from a specific outcome, such as, wanting to create a birthday present for my father, or a wedding anniversary gift for my wife. We're seeing on Etsy and popping up in all types of places. You can buy maps, and it's super expensive. So I thought, what? Why don't I take a crack at and make some of my own types of maps and utilize them for certain specific reasons. And sometimes that topic was influenced by the availability of data sets. So when I started navigating and poking around and trying to download some data sets, the information just wasn't telling the story that I wanted it to tell. So I had to sort of pivot a few times with some of my themes and ideas. So gathering design ideas and data wrangling. So when it came time to wrangling data sets, or looking for some different design ideas, I came across this one polar bear poster. I was looking for information on polar bear migratory patterns or movement. And I really liked the title here. It sort of stuck out to me. And I was interested in sort of taking a look at that, that mirrored reflection, and how it made it look like, the polar bear title was sort of melting into the ice. And I thought it would be fitting to create a title like this for a map of Greenland that I was experimenting with. I was playing around with some different transparency filters in ArcGIS Pro, and just thinking about that the Greenland ice sheet and how its effect is been by climate change. So I went out there and looked to see what kind of tutorials or information could I find on how to sort of create a title like this. And I found this really easy Photoshop text effect tutorial, which allowed me to, in a few steps, to sort of create the title that I was looking for. And here you can see that finished title in my day 23 map of Greenland. Like I said, in this map, I was sort of trying to experiment in ArcGIS Pro with transparency filters on DEMs, and trying to visualize the coast and sort of the ice sheet and make it appear like it'd been melting or fading away into the ocean. And I think that the map and the title sort of go hand in hand. They work really well to sort of tell this story that it looks like the title there is sort of melting into the water and being reflected there. And I was really pleased with how this turned out. As a first crack at sort of messing around and playing with Photoshop, as well as being able to experiment within ArcGIS Pro. And it definitely allowed me to check off one of those boxes for my goals of stepping outside the norm. Another one of my goals was to use QGIS to make a map, and not just use QGIS for cleaning up the shapefile attribute names. So day 20, Aurora was perfect for that and gave me that opportunity. And I took this opportunity to sort of create, like I'd said, I wanted to create a map. My father grew up on a small farm in a rural town called Ashland in Nebraska. So I took this opportunity to sort of map the natural vegetation of Nebraska, found some good data resources out there, some open data, and sort of got to explore some of the symbology and the layout tools that QGIS had. And I was really happy with that outcome. Day 24, statistics. When I saw statistics on there, I thought, you know what, it'd be cool to make a map more like an infographic. So I've been working with a student gathering some data on mass shootings in America from motherjones.com. And so I took that data and decided, you know what, I'm going to create my own little infographic for this day's challenge. So I was really happy with, being able to incorporate some of those design elements and different visual tactics into this map. Some of the stuff that I typically don't get to do. And here we have Save the Goondocks. What better way to embrace day 28's theme of funny than with John Nelson's tattered map sandwich. When I think of a pirate map, I immediately think of Goonies, Chester Copperpot. So John's tattered map and the pirate style from ArcGIS Pro were a perfect mashup for this day's theme. Fast forward a year and a pandemic, and along comes the 2020 30-day map challenge. There were a few new themes that were added in. So I decided to sort of toss my hat and rink again and create 30 maps, because I could explore a handful of new tools that I wasn't able to do last challenge. And there were some other data sets that I wanted to explore that I didn't get to last time. So, but one thing we did learn during the pandemic, during quarantine, was that, my daughters became experts at Minecraft. So I took this opportunity to sort of incorporate their help, and day 19 was Null. And so immediately thought of my favorite t-shirt that I have of Null Island. So we used that as a backdrop, and we had them help me create our own version of Null Island in Minecraft. Day 28, movement. So around the start of the pandemic as well, I started to run a lot more frequently. And so I've been seeing a lot of folks making maps of a lot of their Strava activities. So I took this opportunity to figure out how to download 90 plus local runs from my Strava. And this allowed me to test and bring into QGIS and work with some of the blend modes. Something that I don't get to do in the ArcGIS environment a few years ago. But so one of the things I realized that GPS data can overload your computers and crash it. So it's a lot of big data. So I had to a few times ran into some technical difficulties, but I was really happy with the outcome of how this looks. Day 16, islands. Here I finally had a go at testing glow effects in Mapbox Studio, following along Joni Walker's tips and tricks. So Joni's been doing some incredible work using Mapbox Studio. So I took some of these challenges to sort of explore those options. I typically work with, like I said, building interactive web maps. So I work with the Mapbox WebGL, but not much in Mapbox Studio. So this was a great opportunity for me to explore some of those cartographic tools and features that Mapbox Studio has to offer. And one thing that does come along with creating fast and simple maps, spelling mistakes. It's just something that sometimes goes along with making maps. I'll start to wrap things up here. Making maps is a lot like Waze or following your GPS. If you miss a turn, or a better option becomes available to you, or you hit a roadblock, you can always pivot, continue onward towards your goal, whatever that may be. All right, thank you for listening. The 30-day map challenge was super enjoyable and rewarding. I achieved some of the goals that I set out to do. And it was a great way to engage with all the different participants. I made some new connections, as well as discovered some incredible work and cartographers from around the globe. So thanks, folks, and keep on being awesome.